Not too long ago, I examined a patent held by EA. Now, patents in gaming are plentiful. There are numerous different software and development systems that require legal protections against competition, but this very specific patent from EA was particularly interesting. The subject matter was dynamic difficulty adjustment, and the description of what this is and when it takes place was fairly alarming. Essentially, this patent referred to a system wherein user actions and character functions were modified on the fly during any given match or session to manipulate the outcome. An example would be a FIFA match where one player, whether it be against a computer opponent or a real one, the patent did not say where the technology was being used. It is merely a legal protection describing the system itself, where one player accelerated ahead by a number of goals, let's say a large number of goals, and then the dynamic difficulty adjustment would just handicap his players, so his opponent could catch up. This is done for a few different reasons. Number one, to ensure maximum player engagement and satisfaction. Some players are just bad, but being bad at a game is less fun than being skilled, at least in the majority of circumstances, that is. The dynamic difficulty adjustment would allow mechanically less skilled players to overcome that obstacle and perform better than they otherwise would, which theoretically should increase playtime and satisfaction. Number two was to spur microtransaction purchases. In the patent, there are numerous references to the raw number of purchases or general amount of monetary spending. The takeaway being, this is a system designed to manipulate players into purchasing more packs, not just through the raw stats of the players acquired through the packs themselves, but by systematically manipulating that player's team performance beneath the surface. The objective is to motivate further spending and increase player engagement, i.e. keep them in the loop for longer. And certain EA developers have adamantly denied the implementation of this system, saying it is not active in FIFA and it is not active elsewhere in their other titles, but the patent process is not free, and it is not simple. To even hold this patent shows at least a moderate interest in the subject to a point where resources were invested to protect their now proprietary system. Well, that's EA. Seems typical, right? But today I want to discuss another patent from Activision Blizzard. It's very, very long, and truth be told, a lot of it is just legal complexities void of any relevant meaning to our subject matter. For anyone who wants to read it, I'll link it down below in the description, but one particular segment is necessary to highlight. Unit 81 Figure 3b illustrates a table providing an exemplary list of parameters of a gameplay session that are modified based on a player's skill level and the corresponding experience for players of different skill levels. For example, in a first shooter gaming environment, when a first player aims his weapon at a target, a parameter defining the tolerance for how accurate the player's aim must be to hit the target is modified based on the acquired skill level of the player. The computer assigns the tolerance for how accurate the player's aim must be to hit the target differently based on the skill level of the first player. A player having a higher skill level will be assigned a lower tolerance parameter and therefore will have to be more accurate in aiming in order to hit the target. To boil it down as much as possible, an automated system will determine how skilled players are and adjust enemy hitboxes based on that determination. To go further, that is just one example. The patent is directed towards cooperative teamwork and team-based activities, so FPS hitboxing is just one possible application. Keep in mind that Activision Blizzard is the publisher behind Call of Duty, and also, until recently, the controlling interest behind the Destiny series as well. Thankfully, Bungie has split from Activision Blizzard, and it appears to have been a net positive for the franchise as a whole, but understanding that the patent was filed at the end of 2017, the system has been prioritized since long before that split took place. This is where I can honestly only speculate, but that speculation at its core is based around this well-established and patented system. I would guess that the system is not employed in PvP scenarios, such as Call of Duty multiplayer. This is probably the number one fear for most people watching. The same way dynamic difficulty adjustment from EA is feared to have been used in the FIFA franchise, destroying player versus player matches, which are one of the biggest draws in the entire game, much like the Call of Duty multiplayer mode. I don't think that Call of Duty Modern Warfare PvP employs this system. I just can't picture it. Including that type of system would be a fundamental betrayal of the player base so horrific it could actually kill the franchise outright. The language in this patent leads me to believe it is truly aimed at team-oriented cooperative gameplay, from a PvE standpoint, but even then, it is still a betrayal of player trust. To clarify why I say this, I'll need to highlight another segment of the document. Unit 0086, in another example, the chance to find bonus treasure may call for modifications provided to high skill level players that provide a higher chance, for example 80% chance, on session completion, whereas modifications provided to low skill players may provide a lower chance, for example 35% chance on session completion. Accordingly, a table, database, or other data set includes a bonus treasure entry wherein a different value is separately assigned to each skill level and wherein each of the different values is associated with a probability of a player finding a bonus treasure, with higher skill levels having values associated there with a greater probability of finding, and with lower skill levels having values associated there with a lower probability of finding. On a surface level, this might sound pretty standard. Players with higher skill earn more points and subsequently get better rewards, but it's not so simple. These dynamic rewards are based on a system that is potentially modifying how often your bullets even hit the target without the player being aware of that change. The result is that player 1 with a determined skill level of high is effectively playing a different game than player 2 with a skill level of moderate. Let me explain. This entire document is taking a giant steaming dump on the idea of a level playing field, and it's an embarrassment to even the most slightly competitive person. In the past, games were standard. There's the enemy has a hitbox, you either hit or you miss, and if you miss, you improve until you hit it. That's the basic loop. When rewards are given based on a standard and predictable system, everything works. Everything works perfectly in that situation. But as soon as you modify on an individual level how the game operates, especially when there's cooperative gameplay and team play going on, and then issue rewards based on that individual modification, you are not only wrecking the idea of a level playing field, you effectively destroy the player base's ability to self-improve. Imagine the reality here. You, as player 2, are marked as moderately skilled. The game does not tell you this. Hey, you are moderately skilled, but your teammate is highly skilled. So you can miss, and we automatically make some of your misses hits because you, in effect, have a totally different enemy. So what happens instead? Well, you get a different hitbox and are not required to aim as precisely. Now, since the game is not telling you what has happened, you will fall into a muscle memory pattern where you play as if the enemies have a larger hitbox. Sure, this could be compensated for, I guess, if it slowly restricts that hitbox on its own as an effort to raise the relative skill level, but that comes with a whole different set of issues, such as modifying difficulty without a player deliberately asking for it, which is not okay. The more likely outcome, and to be clear, any conceivable outcome I've been able to think of is not at all acceptable, but the most likely is that players fall into a subconscious gameplay pattern based around the hitbox that is presented to them, which removes the predictability of self-improvement when all players have equal footing. Not only that, but they will be getting lower rewards when compared to the more skilled allies, but the game is not allowing them to even understand why. Players desire equal opportunity and fair gameplay. There is a reason that survival games which offer economy resets immediately gain a huge influx of previous users. It is because the fair, level playing field has returned and the sensation of starting from an equal position is highly desired. When everything is established and you are joining a game or a realm where clans already dominate, where you will have nothing, they will have everything, and there is no sense of equality straight from the get-go, it is undeniably less appealing. Now imagine that a game like Destiny, even from day one as new content releases, though this is absolutely just a hypothetical, please keep this in mind. As I stated earlier, Bungie has split from Activision Blizzard, which disconnects them from this patent. Imagine if Destiny employed a dynamic difficulty system. From the very first moments, if you are determined to be lower in skill, your hitbox is different, your rewards are different, and they are not based on your actual performance when compared to your peers, they are based on your performance within a system that unilaterally decided to bracket you within a hidden group. All this makes no mention of what would be the outcome were this to ever appear in a player versus player scenario. I could rant and rave for hours about how that totally undermines the very fabric of competition, but even just in PvE team activities, it's not that much better. To some, the idea of individual gameplay augmentation might sound like a good idea. What does it matter that the hitbox is different in a shooting game, or that loot is different based on these hidden changes? But think about the proven intent behind this type of system. EA, as a publisher and a company, is viewed as evil and greedy. I get that, but so is Activision Blizzard. EA's dynamic difficulty adjustment, which is basically the same system under a different name with slightly different individual mechanics, was designed to increase user playtime and encourage spending. Activision Blizzard has their own patent for a system that will, what, benevolently modify your gameplay so that you have the best experience possible? Give me a break. Activision Blizzard is also the company that holds a patent for player versus player matchmaking systems deliberately designed to play on envy and set you up with certain opponents so that you will be manipulated into buying more stuff. How do we reasonably picture a hidden difficulty adjustment system to operate when considering its owner? To the benefit of the player? Or, more likely, manipulation of the intrinsically expected level playing field to push users into the microtransaction store? You tell me. The patent holds even more, such as a modification based on determined player skill level to the amount and complexity of equipment that they even have available. This is not just a typical ranked gear distribution where the most skilled players accumulate enough rank, renown, or currency to access a higher tier of equipment, with transparency along the way. This is a hidden system to bar not only what gear players have access to, but the complexity of that gear, because they are too unskilled and might not even know that they are too unskilled so as to improve. In a perfect world, maybe there is an implementation of this patent that is not brain dead and predatory. Maybe. I'll entertain the thought, I guess, but I really don't expect it to happen. As it stands, Activision, much like EA, holds a patent that really only serves one purpose that I can see: harm user experience, degrade the overall product, but make more money along the way. I am a strong advocate for meritocracy. If you are the most skilled, you should be at the top, or be the one hired to the job, position, whatever, etc. But if you are not skilled, you should be on an equal playing field, so that at the very least, you have every legitimate opportunity to become skilled. That's it for today. If you want to support, there are links down below: merch, Patreon, Twitter, etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.